This video is going to sound a lot like a conspiracy, like pie in the sky ideas a little bit, but try to bear with me because, most conspiracy theories turn out to be true these days. Take yourself back to 2020. You had so many conspiracy theories which turned out to be true. So, ivermectin, you had Joe, the most common YouTube guy. I'm forgetting his last name, but they totally smeared his name because he used this ivermectin to get over COVID. Well, now I'm seeing it advertised on YouTube ads as just a common way to help your immunity. COVID, President Trump was calling it the China virus, and he was totally smeared and called a racist for that because there was no proof that it was from Wuhan, from a lab in Wuhan. It's been proven true. It was a conspiracy theory to think that the efficacy of the jab was BS when these vaccines normally take 6 years to develop, and this was developed in 6 months, and the Food and Drug Administration wanted no part of it. They want to prove it. But if you said anything against it, you were ostracized from society. Even if you were saying that Trump isn't Hitler, they wanted to say that was a conspiracy. Of course he's a racist, a Hitler, and he wants to be a dictator, and he wants to totally put people in concentration camps. They said he wouldn't relinquish power when his term was up, his first term as president. Even saying that Trump did not cause an insurrection, when it's like, I just 2 days ago I asked a Democrat, he said that Trump caused an insurrection. I was like, what exactly did he say to cause the insurrection? March down to the Capitol, calmly and peacefully. No. They just totally, it's all team membership, right? You have to have team membership 100%. I was a Democrat my whole life until 2018. When I just mentioned that I like his tariffs. I like the idea of us not just getting screwed by the whole world with tariffs. And I like the idea of building a wall on the border. And my family I was gang stalked. The whole family attacked me. You have to have 100% compliance in this day and age with everything. Remember, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It turned into 2 years. If you said it's just a trial run of control, you were smeared. That was you were a conspiracy theorist. So there's agencies, and the vast majority of people, we're talking like 99%, are on board with quote unquote fitting in. So even churches are involved in establishing control. And if you kind of push back, or you aren't willing to join this or that, you're gang stalked, you're smeared. Chosen ones come from an environment of control, a controlling environment. So we've already learned how to be non-compliant. That's why chosen ones are usually free thinkers, sovereign beings that have already been through the fire and faced radical ostracization, smear campaigns, and toxicity, abuse, simply because we're free thinkers, and we're not going to just be team member. I put on the jersey, my last name is Brown, so I'm a Brown, accept me, I will comply with every single aspect. One of my best friends in Los Angeles, he's an intelligent guy. I can't beat him in chess. I've beat him a few times, but 9 out of 10 times the guy would just wipe the board with me. And I know he doesn't believe everything he's saying when he falls in line 100% with the agendas that are taking place. Because certain agenda, he's white. How can you support this agenda that all white people are inherently evil, you know? And the agenda that no matter what, if a black person drives his car over a whole parade of 95% white people, killing all these old white people, they say an SUV drove over people instead of saying, possibly this was a hate crime. There was a black man that drove his car right over people through the center of a parade. A black man went in assassination style, put a gun to a little 9-year-old that was playing on his knees in the grass in his front yard and blew his brains out. No single legacy media covered it. It wouldn't be covered. So everything is pushing agendas, and extremely intelligent, wealthy people will go along with every single part of the agenda in order to fit in and be accepted as a team member. Remember, you can't deviate one iota or you will be smeared, you will be ostracized. That's the way of society right now. This is what we've come to. It started, even before the pandemic, but it was really locked in during the pandemic, and we've been living it ever since. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, it's just obvious. So I'm laying a foundation, and most of you, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, and you have a relationship with Jesus, you're already aware of this. So bear with me. I'm going somewhere with all of this. So it's been like this since the beginning of time, right? The Sadducees, the Pharisees, they dictated down to the people what they had to believe, the law, and they had to follow 100%. And the law started with God saying certain things: avoid pork, do this, don't do that. If you're unclean, if you touch a dead person, if you have a emission of semen, you're unclean for a day, and then you'd have to go get blessed by the priest before you were let back into the temple. All these different, but then the humans ran with it, and they took like a very small amount of laws and blew them up, times 4, made so many laws that people always felt guilty and felt like they couldn't be a good, godly person because of the control that these people were trying to establish and mandate and dictate and hold over their head. Why did they hang Jesus on the cross? He was a free thinker. He thought outside of the box. So they crucified him. Free thinkers have always been a threat. The prophets in the Old Testament, how many of the Lord's prophets did they kill? Touch not my anointed and harm not mine prophets. So the Lord was very upset with how many of his prophets, he would use these prophets to go correct them, and they'd kill them, because they wanted control. They didn't want to relinquish control to God. And if you're someone that has a real, true, solid, intimate relationship with the Lord, you are being seen as the same way by your own pastors and priests, because you're in alignment with God. You're not going to just swear alignment to these flesh and blood humans and whatever they say when you have a higher calling and you have a higher truth, right? If you're in alignment with the way, the truth, and the life. So, I was starting to associate with someone that, I called her on some truth things, and now we're no longer friends because she couldn't stand the truth. It was too uncomfortable for her. So when you step out of that control, you get a big red target on your back. And they'll send people to monitor you, which I'll get into in a second. So, but mainly, you're a threat because you're an individual that is willing to exemplify this non-compliance. if you didn't take COVID 100% serious as life-threatening, it turned out to not even be that bad. But if you didn't, and you said anything to the contrary, ostracized, conspiracy theorists. So I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and twice I tried to enter the dog park. You know, so I could stay 6 feet away from people, but I went in without a mask, right? And what did these people do? They said, get out of here. And the whole dog park, I'm talking like 15 to 20 people, twice came up right in my face. All of them were right up against each other and were driving, physically pushing me out. Physical assault is what that was. Demanded I get out of the dog park because I didn't have a mask on. And so I was saying, hey, you guys are the ones that are supposed to accept 6 feet. Stay 6 feet. And they were pushing me out, and they were stacked right up against each other. And so they weren't following any of the rules, which to me demonstrates team membership over the reality of what they were supposed to believe. Because if they really believe this, it would be too much of a threat of catching COVID to get within 6 feet of people. But they all were buffeting right up against each other, touching each other and touching me, physically forcing me out of the dog park, simply because I took one little step towards being a free thinker. And that exemplified non-compliance. How about losing my career of 28 years as a very, very devoted, hard-working school psychologist simply because I didn't take the jab? But I had long haul COVID 4 months before the vaccine came out. We know that natural immunity, especially if you had long haul, is far more efficacious than the jab was. But no. Do as we say, right? Reminds me of Gavin Newsom, do as we say, not as we do, because he went out to a restaurant when all of these mandates were in effect, and he was at a whole table, no one had their mask on at a restaurant, and he was caught on video camera, and he had to come out and publicly apologize. I had a note from my priest, religious exemption. Religious exemption has always been respected and honored with vaccines. Nope, not this go around. It's 100% compliance or you're out of your career. So I lost my career. My ex-wife lost her career. We had 2 kids in college. None of it mattered. It was 100% compliance or you're screwed. That's what we're coming towards. And that's what I'm coming towards. So continue to bear with me. So up here, I got the police officer saw me, I think simply because I was riding a Harley, as an individual, a free thinker, and a patriot. And I was vilified and pulled over and ended up with a reckless driving for no good reason. And then I got physically attacked by someone that was deranged, that had been physically assaulting my dog over and over and over, and the management wouldn't help me. I was already, everyone's on board with this. The apartment management had already labeled me as a troublemaker and a rebellious person, partly because of the Harley, partly because they wouldn't talk to me when I was living with a felon that just got out of jail, and he was a drug dealer, and he just got out of rehab, and he was stealing my items, and he was abusing me, and they wouldn't even do anything. So they wouldn't even talk to me. 3 months, I tried to get them to at least in correspondence with me, wouldn't talk to me. So I marched into their office where it was off limits. I wasn't allowed to go, and they said, get out of here, we're calling the cops. And I'll say, I'll call the cops. I'm paying my rent every month. And I've been trying for 3 months to get someone to be in correspondence with me about this individual that's stealing my brand new expensive Kershaw knife and other items, and is just literally leaving crap all over the entire place to where I couldn't even go in the kitchen and make food. There was no counter space. There was rotting food left all over the countertops. They wouldn't talk to me. So then I was attacked. And I think they told the guy to go in his bedroom and put a scratch under his face. He had been drinking wine all afternoon. I just got off work. I was completely sober, and he he went to bite me. It was the first thing he did, and while he was biting me, he started breaking my fingers. I didn't do anything to him, and yet they said we were equally responsible. I was worried about this guy's health because he's Asperger's. I've worked with Asperger clients for years, and I knew if I had to go into jail for a couple of days, I didn't have any friends to rely on. There would be no one to care for my dog. So I was cognizant of all of this in my mind, and I was just like, I'm just going to call 911. I'm going to just try to get him on the ground, restrain him with my right hand, use my left hand to pull my cell phone out, call 911, which I did. But he had broken these two fingers, and he almost broke my thumb. He tried so hard to break the thumb, and that was the most pain. My whole hand swelled up like a balloon because all he was doing was just trying to break fingers the whole time while I was trying to get him down the ground, restrain him, and call 911. And they actually said that you're equally responsible. When I didn't do any, even though he assaulted my dog for the third time right in front of me, and management won't help, and I calmly asked him, please don't assault my dog, and he attacked me. Crazy, yelling, screaming, I had scratch marks all over my body, and then recently, I have this person that lives above me, and he throws temper tantrums every week, at least one, where he runs down the stairs yelling, dropping F-bombs to go yell at a little dog 2 apartment units over that barks out the window. And he just mad dogs everyone like he's king of the whole apartment complex. And he asked me twice to go complain about the hot water not being good and not being hot enough. And I was like, I'm fine with the water temperature. You're a grown man, you can go complain. And he insisted that I go complain for him. So he's got a little bit of control issues as well. Everything pisses this guy off. Everyone knows he's a ticking time bomb. And yet, he drops really heavy things. Always late at night. He doesn't sleep at night. He works at night half the time, and then half the night he's at home all night dropping really heavy objects. He did it last night, every night that I've lived here. And I mentioned it to him a few times just in passing, like, what is it that you're dropping in the middle of the night that sounds really heavy? And he'd be like, that's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. But the first 2 weeks I lived here, he would mad dog me, and he would just create World War III all night long for 2 weeks straight. He wanted this give and take because he has no life. He has no car, he has no girlfriend, he has no friends. He just walks across the street, works at the Chevron station, and when he's not doing that, he's sitting on a stoop, staring people down and looking for reasons to throw temper tantrums. There's a grown man, he was in the military, he was a prison guard. It's like, you're like baby Huey, grow up, man, grow a sack. I know he's going to see this. The whole apartment complex is against me, just like my whole church. This is what we're into. If you're a free thinker and you have this intimate relationship with Jesus, you're screwed. I was called in by one of the priests up here. Well, first of all, I hadn't even got an apartment yet. I'd only been up here living in my car for about a week. And this priest saw it in me. He saw that I was an individual, a free thinker. I went to shake his hand, and he literally just looked me up and down and didn't want to shake my hand. And I was like, my hand was hanging there though. And then he touched it for a second and pulled his hand out. And the abuse I went through with this guy. So he was so abusive, so I went to schedule a meeting with him, and I said, would you mind just meeting with me for 5 minutes? And he looked right at my face, he said, no, and turned and walked away. I hadn't done a single thing to this guy. He is still mocking me from the pulpit during his speeches. It's crazy. So if you have to be willing to take this kind of abuse, because it is the hardest to be an individual and align yourself with the way, the truth, and the life than it's ever been in history right now. And so you know what I'm talking about if you're a free thinker and you have a serious relationship with Jesus. I was called in by this meeting with a Catholic priest, and I said, can you help me get a spiritual advisor? And he started asking me, well, what's your prayer life like now? And I openly admitted, and he was like, and how does that make you feel when you pray? Asking all these like questions that were like, hey man, I just want a spiritual advisor. Why don't you start telling me how many hours you pray a day? What kind of feelings does it give you? All kinds. He was just gathering information and seeing how much of a threat I was and how much this relationship I have with Jesus is real. Because God forbid, I'm supposed to get my religious connection to the Lord through him. God forbid I do it alone in my prayer closet. So this individual upstairs, I went up there and I said, his door was open, he was in his bedroom. I went up there and I said, hey man, I've been asking you nicely about the dropping the heavy things in the middle of the night for 1.5 years now. I think you're doing it on purpose. And he got up right in my face and said, get the F out of here. If you ever come here again, and you ever say that to me again, if you ever come up my stairs again, I'm going to, you'll see what happens. You're going to be a mess. I'm going to take care of you. And he got up in my face. He was like, get out of here now. And I was like, I'm a free individual. I'm standing on public property. I'm not across your threshold. I don't have to take orders from you. And then when the cop came, he literally went up and talked to him for about 30 seconds. Now, this guy had made terrorist threats against me and verbally assaulted me. He spoke to him about 30 seconds, came down and spoke to me about 20 minutes, constantly saying, take your hands out of your pockets. And I was like, look, man, I pulled my pockets out. I'm like, relax. There's nothing in my pockets. I'm the one that called you for assistance. Stop treating me this way. And simply because I said that it sounds like he's dropping heavy 35-pound weights, he discounted the whole thing. Both the gentleman upstairs and the police officer said the exact same thing. Well, obviously you're wrong because he doesn't own weights. And the whole thing was written off because he doesn't own weights. That was a descriptive term. I wasn't saying he owned weights. You can use a bowling ball. You can jump off the bed if you don't use anything and slam your feet on the floor as you land. You don't need anything. I just said it sounds like he's dropping a heavy 35-pound weight. And they kept insisting that it's someone way 30 yards away that he owns weights. And it must be him that you're hearing. No, it's right above me. It's my ceiling. I know what's my ceiling and what's 4 walls away and 30 yards away. No, And so just the cops are totally in on it with me. Now the apartment management's in on it. The people that live here in this apartment management, the Catholic clergy and the congregation's in on it. So this is the fun path we get to walk. But you know what? It's the way, right? The truth and the life. We have total adherence to truth. We love truth. A truth teller is vilified in any narcissistic family cult. And so there you go. But if you have Jesus in your heart, if you're a chosen one, you've had him in your heart your whole life. Even if you weren't baptized, I believe. And so you're always in love with truth, and you always want to speak towards truth. You always want to call out things. I've lost so many friends because I was willing to risk the friendship to point out something that's ruining their health or something that they're totally being fake with. I would say, hey, man, you should back up off that, or whatever. And they would, that's it. The friendship's over. So be it, because I got to be truthful. And I love you. I love everyone. You're my best friend or whatever. And when you're lying, I can see through you, and I'm going to call you out on it. I have adherence to truth. You should too. But that's not the common practice with most individuals. So all are on board. Almost all will comply in the end times with the mark of the beast. The book of Revelation, I think it's chapter 13, I'm not sure, but it clearly delineates that the Antichrist will demand 100% compliance, and the mark of the beast has to be taken. It'll be either be on your right hand or your forehead, or you won't be able to sell or buy. It sounds like a conspiracy theorist, but it's not. Look at what I went through with all the conspiracies that have been true, that were totally causing people to be canceled, cancel culture, to be ostracized, smeared, run out of dog parks with the threat of physical safety, and them totally disregarding their own laws that they say they swear by, getting right up in my face, and all the crowd not respecting the 6 feet to get me because I was a non-compliant person. So, everyone's on board. But if you're watching this channel and you're still here after 25 minutes, you are most likely see yourself as a sovereign individual, a free-thinking person that is kind of a patriotic person, because that's what America was built on. And that's trying to even be destroyed in individuals here in the freest country in the world. So we have to stay strong. If you took the jab, repent, because it was unnecessary. Unless you had respiratory problems and you were like, 60, 65 or older. But for the vast majority of us that, are physically fit, get time outdoors. And what were they trying to do? They were trying to do everything that was wrong. Getting fresh air and sunshine on your skin and being in nature was totally blackballed. You weren't allowed to do all the things that helps your immunity. When all my friends in Los Angeles were washing everything that came home from the grocery store, even the packaging, with gloves on, I was trying to get COVID because I wanted to get it so that I could build natural immunity. Once again, I was a free thinker. You have to be willing to not listen to anything anyone else tells you. Take in information from as many sources as possible. Use your brain cells and even take notes and weigh things out, and you make your own decision. That's being an American. So they send people into your life, constantly watching you through even astral projection. That's real. People can travel outside of their body and come in and see what you're doing in your house or your apartment. They can use flesh and blood people to monitor you, right? Monitoring spirits. You can have familiar spirits and monitoring spirits that are actually demons monitoring you in the spirit realm. You can have curses causing exhaustion, right? I just went through 3 days where I was exhausted. I'm coming out of it now. And that started about 4 hours after I had listed a video about how chosen ones, curses against chosen ones, double back was the name of the video. And 4 hours after that was uploaded, this wave of exhaustion came over me. I've been through it the whole time I've lived up here for 3 years. I know, I pray a little bit more. I start eating cleaner. I fast, and I'll be done with it usually in 48 hours to 3 days. All kinds of curses that I don't want to go into right now, but because I want to end this video, it's getting way too long. So you just have to stay strong and independent. So as I just said, fasting is good. We have to practice discipline in these end times, because we're going to need discipline to be able to have all these people gang stalking you, smear campaigns, so on and so forth. Eat clean food. Avoid traps. There's traps set up for us, not just in the way we think, but sending people to you. I can't tell you how many girls I've had sent my way to fornicate. I've had to turn down one-night stands with good-looking women. All the way back 6 years ago is when I had to start turning down women offering themselves to me. Not to brag, that's definitely not bragging, trust me. And they cause other distractions like these drones, these these wasps in the south, and even spiders that have been exposed to these leaks from the nuclear power plant that shut down, that are now like nuclear. You've got stories on that. You've got stories on rabbits right now in Colorado that are growing tentacles out of their faces. Google it. You'll see these pictures with all these rabbits with big tentacles growing out of their head. And I say kill them off, but they're saying just leave them alone. It's fine. So aliens are coming in November, and they didn't just say there's, aliens coming. They said, no, aggressive, hostile aliens. How do they know they're hostile? So it's a scare tactic. And they're saying they're going to be here in November. We're going to have like that old movie from the 70s, Encounters of the Third Kind. Sydney Sweeney. Think about how much hoopla and videos have been made on YouTube about Sydney Sweeney, when only 12% of the population even had a slight issue. It was saying it was eugenics when she's talking about she has good genes, So, this is gearing up. There's something going on with 2025. Time seems to be going faster. If you look at the timeline in the news, just radical, kind of interesting things, but just bizarre things are being reported every 2 or 3 days. Sometimes you have to take a break and disconnect from that and spend more time in your Bible and your prayer closet. So God bless you. Leave a comment. I'll talk to you later.